Only God refreshing your soul, giving you some consolation, and giving you hope to continue can get you through this experience. Without God's grace, without God's consolation, without God and the Virgin Mary helping you to bear this situation, despair is the only thing you could arrive at. It's the only thing you could arrive at. It is only because of God that you can refrain from despair in this situation. You have to rely on God. And the thing is, too, I've spoken to other people in the past about how much spiritual torment it is for me seeing nothing but heretics, nothing but prostitutes, nothing but fools, nothing but godless brutes, right? And a thought I had last year and very recently, again, I've kind of started contemplating it again. If you claim to be, let's say a quote unquote traditional Catholic, and living in this godless world, this disgusting dungeon of death, is not a constant martyrdom, a constant torment, a constant agony, a constant suffering in your soul, I would find it very difficult to conclude anything other than you are a fool. I'm serious. I don't know how I conclude anything else. I don't know how I could conclude anything else. Because I met a fool last year. A sedevacantist fool. And I don't even know for sure whether this brute was an indifferentist or not. I'm not certain, because the thing is with these indifferentists, the thing with indifferentists is that they don't know their head from their foot regarding church teaching, right? And they don't even know what they believe half the time. And then when they try to explain what they believe, it makes no sense because it's heresy and foolishness. So you can't even really tell what they believe. But let's say this brute was an indifferentist. This brute was talking about, being all happy and joyful and all this kind of stuff or whatever. And it was very confusing to me because I was like, how could you be a real Catholic today? See the world covered in almost nothing but darkness. The church in shambles, being completely bludgeoned from all sides. Holding on for dear life. And you're walking around happy? And then it hit me. I'm like, oh, you know what? Because this person is an indifferentist and a sedevacantist, they think and they commune with brutes like Donald Sanborn, right? Filthy brutes like Donald Sanborn. Because they commune with such dogs, they believe that they have a community and friends and all this stuff or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they believe they have these fellow Catholics that they're interacting with or whatever. And in reality, they're a pack of heretics and schismatics. So in that regard, ignorance is bliss. Because he thinks that those brutes are the Catholic hierarchy, because he believes that he has a real mass to go to and he has bishops around him and he has priests that he can rely on and trust and all that stuff, because of those things, that is why his soul is not experiencing the true agony that a true Catholic must feel in today's situation. Because he's not suffering with the church. Because he's not with the church. He's with schismatics and heretics. And there's that false sense of community or security that he has being in that sect of blasphemy. So that makes sense to me because as I God willing will explain more in the future, as a true Catholic today, it is almost impossible to find a real Catholic priest or to know another real Catholic in person. Okay? Today, as a real Catholic, if you know any other real Catholics, and God willing, you'll know what I mean by that clearly in the future, you're probably going to only know them on the internet because we are so isolated and spread out scantily across the earth, you know? And perhaps that's by God's design, God's will, you know, because being so isolated and so separated from fellow Catholics adds to the suffering. It adds to your agony. And this is a time of suffering. This is a period where the church and her children are all in tremendous agony. Our Lady of La Salette herself, who is in heaven, was crying when she delivered the message of La Salette, the prophecy of our situation. If the Virgin Mary is crying, how can you expect to be happy? If she is crying, you must cry as well. If the church is suffering, you must suffer with it. How can you be happy seeing the world doing nothing but offending God constantly? Nothing but blaspheming God, spitting on his name. How can you be happy seeing that filth constantly? You can't unless you're a fool. You can't. You cannot. And I saw a prophecy recently, which is purportedly the third secret of Fatima. And in that prophecy, it said that the situation will be so horrible that it will cause agony even in the most courageous. So the Blessed Virgin Mary said, according to this prophecy, that our situation is so horrible that even the most valiant, the most courageous, the most devout, the most zealous, the most loving of God's souls will be in agony. And reading things like that console me, because they show me, by God's grace and mercy, I pray, that my suffering is simply the fulfillment of God's will. God wants me to suffer right now because the church is suffering. And if my soul is united with hers, I must share in her pain. How can you see your mother being beaten and not be sorrowful, not be saddened by that, right? So yeah, Media Vita for me is really, I take it to be an expression of my pain living in this godless world and suffering along with the suffering church.